You're live.
Okay. I'd like to call the June 25th, 2025 meeting of the Oswego County Industrial Development Agency to order. Tim, can you take a roll call, please?
I sure will. Nick Canali,
Present.
Pat Carroll, Gary Standard, Tim Stahl, I am here. I heard Ellen there. I think I heard Mary Ellen.
Sorry.
That's okay, we're taking roll. Mary Ellen.
Present.
Right. And I know Mark Greco is excused and Trish Peter Clark.
Present.
Yeah, perfect timing.
We have a forum, sir.
Okay. And Kevin LaMontagne, you want to go through the staff? No.
Sure. Yeah. So first we have Austin Wheelock, the agency's chief executive officer. I'm Kevin LaMontagne, the chief financial officer of the agency. Our general counsel here at the table is Kevin Caracole. We also have Amber Miller from our staff here in the room. And then we have some guests. We have our special counsel, Amanda Fitzgerald, partner at Barclay Damon Law Firm. And then together for one of the projects on the agenda for item number 7, relating Lake Ontario RE Holding Company, LLC, is Pat Furlong and Jamie Hawksby. So thank you for joining us, all of you. And we have Matt. Sorry, Matt. We have Matt Moses, also from Barclay Damon, counsel for 9 Mile Point Nuclear Station.
Okay, we have a stand up. Anthony Bell on.
Yes. So in the waiting room, who we won't admit just yet, is Anthony. He just prefers to wait in the waiting room.
Okay.
Is Anthony Bell from RPNY New York, RPNY Solar 9 LLC. And that's everybody. A lot of attendees today.
Okay. I don't know, on the agenda, minutes from the last meeting, everyone had a chance to go over those.
Make motion to approve that.
Trish and Gary, any questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Close to the meeting was in the Pale Times on June 11th. Financial report, we're with Kevin on that.
Actually,
Or
hold on a moment. We have 2 sets of minutes. We have governance committee minutes and the board minutes. So let's approve both of those separately. Just before we approve the board minutes, we also need to take an action to approve those governance committee minutes.
We do that at this meeting, or do we do that at the next governance committee?
We do it here as the board.
I will. Second.
Gary and Trish, now, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Apologize, we didn't have it specifically stated on there. Yep, we're good.
Financials, Kevin.
Yeah, just a few very brief comments today that we're into May. Now we have a May 31st financials in your packet and on the portal. 10 months of the year, or year end July 31st, 2 more months. Really brief comments. I really don't have too much anything comment wise to make on the balance sheet. If you flip back to the last 2 pages of the packet, or sorry, in your packets, it's not the last 2, it's the pages right before the long loan list. Pages 5 and 6, I think. The income statement, just a few comments there. We've been talking about revenues. We often talk about revenues, but we've been lagging a bit behind this year toward our goals and also for last year. But we have a number of projects we'll be discussing today that are intended to close by year end. So assuming approvals are obtained and closings happen by July 31st, we should end the year. The income we've already received plus what's here through May around 460,000. Which is historically a very good year for the IDA, and we had forecasts last time we made a forecast of just under 400,000. So we're supposed to be correct. Really, there's no other significant comments. If there's any questions, we'll be happy to talk about.
Any questions? There a motion on the financial? Pat, second.
I'll second.
Tricia? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Financials are approved. Thank you. Conflict waiver request from Barclay Damon.
I can discuss this and we can turn it over to Kevin as well. Because Barclay Damon is representing both sides of this transaction in terms of representing Matt Moses is representing Constellation on behalf of 9 Mile Point Nuclear Stations LLC, and Amanda and Barclay Damon also represents us as well as is the IEA's special counsel, we are requesting that the board approve a conflict waiver request. And Kevin can talk a little bit more about it, but I do want to say that Barclay Damon is a very large firm. They have many different departments, and they work on different departments, and they do not communicate in regular matters. In regards to this project, they have to communicate, but it's not something that they do as part of their typical. So
They're not colluding against us.
they're not colluding against us.
Yeah, in fact, Matt, Matt, no, I can attest to that, having been involved, with these negotiations, directly with Matt and his team, and then after the negotiations have concluded, and the straight lease transaction has been ramped up, Amanda and her team, and the two do not meet other than, as it relates to this year. So I'm completely confident and comfortable in recommending the conflict waiver.
Are you got any questions or concerns?
Need a resolution?
I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Tim? Gary? Discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 9 Mile Point.
So Nick, I'm gonna give a really quick overview. There's quite a few people in this room that can speak to that project. But as we know already from the last meeting where we approved an initial resolution, we're working on renewing under the same terms that the pilot agreement arrangement that the IDA has with 9 Mile Point Nuclear Station LLC. We've held a public hearing, which is one update. Town officials from the town of Scriba joined, and Matt from the company, the representative company joined, and Kevin Kirkhoe also joined.
So the county did too.
Oh, yes, and Rich Mitchell, sorry, thank you. My minutes, pardon me, and Rich Mitchell, county attorney, also came. So there was good representation of the parties involved, but no particular comments no comments on the record for or against the project. Okay. Of course, all of those parties have been cooperating with the company and with us to get this deal in place. So it was a good meeting to get all those people together, but really there was nothing said at the hearing. So.
Okay. So we've got 4 resolutions we need to pass here today.
Actually, there's only 3. There's no secret resolution. This has been found to be a type 2 action, and so there's no
environmental.
Yeah, there. That's not quite right. Why don't we have a secret for this project?
It's wrapped into the inducement.
Thank you.
We have that.
Okay, I guess I can little. Yeah, it's in the language that, so like in the language.
Okay. So we're inducing resolution, file resolution, and final.
Right, correct.
Okay.
We've done a secret review and make sure that, we're in compliance with the law, but no separate resolution.
And it's wrapped in at the end.
Yeah.
It's a finding.
Yeah,
Okay, can I get a motion on the inducement resolution, please?
I'll make the motion.
Mel? Second?
Sorry.
Pat? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I get a motion on the pilot, right? You need something.
Amber, you could let those people in your convenience, but
No.
interrupt here.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Tim and Mel.
Motion carries. Final approving resolution. I get a motion. Gary and Trish. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Any comments or questions?
No, I would say that the company very much appreciates the support of the IDA to implement this, which is effectively a partnership between the company and the community. And the announcement earlier this week from the governor with, promoting NIPA's building of a plant, I don't know whether the company is going to team with NIPA or not. I don't have any information on that, but I think it's a great sign for all of us, in the central New York and Oswego. So thank you all for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. If there's anything else we can do, let us know.
We'll be.
Okay, we want to move to something where we have guests here.
Yes, Anthony Bell is here with RPNY Solar 9, the developers renewable properties. So welcome, Anthony.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time again.
So similarly here, I'll give a quick overview of the project. And we did talk about about this also at the last meeting. And we'll turn it over to Anthony to give us some updates on the timeframe and their plans. So we passed the initial resolution last month for this project, RPNY Solar 9 LLC. Just to refresh, you have a cost benefit in your packet. It's a 3 megawatt solar farm in the town of Oswego on Furnace Station Road. 23.4 acre site. It's about a 14 acre development. So compared to others we've approved, is relatively small. After passing the initial resolution to authorize public hearing last time, we held the public hearing. Anthony and I were the only two attendees at the town of Oswego. So no comments were received at that meeting, and we haven't received any other feedback at the agency. The project's fully approved by the town as far as any environmental review and right to build for site plan approval and other things, outside of, I think, the building permit needs to be pulled perhaps.
Building permit and host community
Right,
agreement,
thank you, Kevin.
but the town and the company are engaged in those negotiations. I have every confidence that that'll be worked out.
And we've discussed that if it's not, close.
Yeah, and it's not to hold up the approval process here. The only thing it would do is delay an inevitable closing, but I don't think that's even gonna be an issue.
And this application right from the get-go was under our updated solar policy. Company and Anthony have been cooperative about that, including the host community benefit negotiation with the town. And one thing that makes this project somewhat unique compared to others is the developer actually through an affiliate owns the parcel. They've already acquired it in the town of Oswego.
Yeah.
And maybe I could turn it over to Anthony for some comments about next steps and where you are with everything as far as getting this thing built and energized.
Yeah, absolutely. So since we last spoke, we completed the process of, solicitation bidding for our engineering, procurement, and construction contractor. We've selected a group called Mill Creek, and we are in the process of finalizing the contracting with them. And then once that is complete, signing all the documents, executing all the documents, they will start their engineering work in earnest, and also, construction and procurement work in earnest. I've had a phone call with their procurement team, and they have stressed that they are going to source local to the county, both labor and materials as much as possible. Right now, that's looking like the bulk of the civil related materials. So stone, gravel, dirt, that sort of things. Stormwater and ENS, BMPs, the landscaping that will be needed. And then also, just sort of any of the miscellaneous odds and ends when you need to run to, the Lowe's outside of town. So that was, something that I was able to communicate to Kevin when asked since the last meeting. In terms of overall schedule, we are still on track to submit for building permits to the town of Oswego. We're still shooting for end of September, early October. And as Kevin C mentioned, we are in the process of negotiating our host community benefit agreement with the town. And the town in our special use permit, they conditioned our building permit submittals upon having that host community agreement. So that will be negotiated and in place as required, prior to receiving our building permits. So
Perfect.
That's the update from our end.
And then going forward, kind of construction started. I think you told me at least some civil work, site works in the fall, most likely. Or
Yes, yeah. So some civil, first things is, surveying the property, staking it, flagging the boundaries, that sort of thing. Tree clearing will need to occur within a certain DEC approved window, just for bat considerations, which is something that we are familiar with based on other projects. So tree clearing cannot start until November, but like I said, given our permitting submittal timeline around October, that we should be able to, hit those windows and everything's falling into place.
Okay. Anybody got any questions for Anthony?
Begins 27.
yeah, probably. Anthony, I guess one question for me while we're all together is, and our councils are here. What about your closing with the IDA? When do you anticipate needing to get that accomplished?
So the actual closing document, I mean, we like to do that, we don't like to drag it out. We can do that, as soon as quickly as possible, once all the information is known. I think the one thing that, maybe the one outstanding item that would be contingent or at least tied to some information from the building permits would be the legal descriptions of the project area. If we want to, do that sort of, courtesy split. Or split that out. That will be based off of, the project area as shown in those building permit submittals. But other than that, I really don't see any other sort of exogenous factors that would hold up a quick closing.
Okay. So we do need the meets and bounds description, as you know, we talked about it, and
Mhm.
we're ready. So you'll be working primarily with Amanda Fitzgerald, who's here in the room on the side. And her team out of Barclay Damon for that closing. So just stay in touch about that, or perhaps we can work to get you a due diligence list so you see what's ahead of us for document needs. Maybe that's a good next step. Even if
Yes.
you don't react to it right away, at least you have it.
Yes, please. Yes, and if someone could please at least via email make the introduction to Amanda, I would appreciate that because I don't know if we've been connected yet.
No, I don't think you have. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
we'll take care of that.
Okay. Ready to move forward here? So this one we do need a seeker, right?
Mhm.
So we're gonna look for a motion on the seeker resolution.
I'll make the motion.
Mel, Pat,
Quick comment on that is we're just adopting the town's findings of a negative declaration on the seeker, which Kevin is.
Yeah, went through a thorough environmental review with multiple state agencies, local, county, so. Make that decision.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Inducement resolution.
Okay.
Tim, Gary. Any questions or comments on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Pilot resolution itself.
I'll make a motion.
Tricia,
I'll second.
Mel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Final approving resolution. That. And
Second.
Mel. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. This is great.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time and we're super appreciative of these benefits. So thank you again.
We will be in touch soon following this meeting.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you.
Okay.
He's all.
And I can kind of do the start here for, the next project on the list is, Lake Ontario Real Estate Holding Company LLC. This is the project is the Bex Hotel property in the Village of Mexico. At this point, this is just, the company is coming to the IDA for an initial resolution. We have, worked with our legal counsel and determined the project to be eligible. I'll let the project or representatives talk a little bit more about that, but it is a multi-use building. It's gonna be commercial. Well, pretty much all commercial. It's be sort of a retail or restaurant on the first floor as well as a hotel on the second floor. So similar to what was there before, just obviously modernized. At this point, what we have discussed with the company is the IDA's 10-year non-manufacturing uniform tax exempt policy, so it's not a deviation from our, what our typical pilot would be for a project like this. And as I said before, the project has been determined to be eligible, or we would not be here today, bringing this forward from the IDA. So really, what we're doing is passing the initial resolution, determining, formalizing that, and then authorizing the IDA to set a public hearing as the next steps. But to give some more information about what the project is, I want to turn it over to Pat Furlong and Jimmy Hockby to discuss it better. So if you guys wanted to,
You want to come up to the table, guys?
yeah.
So like Austin said, it's Beck's Hotel, it's a historical site in Village, Mexico.
At that time, I'm so sorry.
That we're gonna complete renovation. And I'm really gonna have Jamie. Jamie's our lead on the project, so I'm gonna let her explain the whole process.
So we are trying to bring back, obviously, this historic building to Mexico. We do want to have a restaurant down on the first floor. We're hoping a little cafe or something to that effect on the first floor as well. We are going to put, I believe we are discussing right now, 2 residential apartments upstairs. There's really no luxury living or anything like that in the Village of Mexico, so we're thinking that's gonna be a huge thing, you know.
So
for
market rate,
local residents.
market rate housing, I would say it's kind of not a primary use of the property, but it's a
No, it's not.
secondary, yeah.
Just,
Yep.
yeah, just a
Yep.
secondary use for sure, and then, like you said, hotel rooms upstairs as well on the second floor, Airbnb type things, we're hoping to attract outage workers, fishermen, stuff in the area, as well as anyone that may host an event downstairs at the restaurant. We are hoping that could be some type of small wedding or reception or party venue, and then have guests stay upstairs.
How many rooms you talking about for the hotel part? 4 to 5.
Yeah.
It's still in the kind of planning.
In that range though.
Yeah.
I also want to state that for those who don't know, this is a project that was seen as a priority by the state. This project received Restore New York funding in a previous round a couple of years ago because both the Village of Mexico put this forward as a high priority of the village, and the state agreed with that by providing funding. So it's this building's been vacant now for probably the better part of 20 years, 20 plus years. You know, and I would just say, and this is my opinion on this, but if the furlongs had not come along and done this project, then in this year or the next, that building's probably coming down. So this is extremely important to Village of Mexico, and you know, if not for what they're doing, we're probably looking at a parking lot in that corner.
It's a shame. I mean, I remember going there as a restaurant. It was
A
like
lot of people have said that, yeah.
3 floors, so there's,
Yeah.
I remember going on there, but no,
We're gonna take care of that.
Oh, it's very clear.
Are you guys gonna keep the name Beck's Hotel, or is there gonna be a new name associated with the project?
Yeah.
The DBA right now is Beck's Historic Hotel. So.
How does the funding work for transition to a new owner? Is that a possibility or no?
Yeah, so that's already been discussed with New York State, since the project is the same scope as what had been previously proposed by the grantee, the Empire State Development, and those that are involved with it have already agreed that, you know, that those grants, and I don't know if that's happened yet. Or if it's in play.
We did receive a transfer letter from the Village of Mexico giving our new LLC, and I provided that with our application, giving us the funds.
Sorry. Okay, yeah, so, perfect, yeah, that answers that, yeah, and it's been our understanding for projects too, if they follow similar scope and you know, project costs, you know, not, it can exceed the project cost, but it can't go under, kind of a thing, that, you know, it fits within that, and they can do that. I mean, the state wants to see this happen, yeah.
Plus, Restore New York grants are awarded to the municipality.
Correct,
So the municipality still be awarding it soon.
exactly,
Yes.
great point.
It is, Pat, I just want to underline something you said, I think you said you're doing, it's in the name, but you're doing a historic renovations to accomplish tax credits and different things, so.
Yeah,
There's
correct.
also that to look forward to as well.
Yes,
There's
so it
something
is-
about historic.
It is a
Yeah.
historical building, it is registered building,
Mm.
so we're going through the process to as much historical stuff that we can keep in the building. Do it, unfortunately, it was gutted pretty severely
Yeah.
before we went in there. Stairway's still intact, which is fantastic. The exterior
It got wet, I know, but.
Yeah, hardwood floors,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things, and even the moldings and stuff, even though some of the product can't be saved, we're gonna
Recreate.
recreate them.
Awesome.
Yeah, and just, you know, from the application itself, you know, and, you know, it's been described that, you know, 18 jobs be created by the project, 10 full-time equivalent jobs, but 18 jobs. You know, it's about a $2.7 million project total. And a lot of that, you know, probably could be lower, but because of the historic nature of it, that's, you know, kind of puts the project up to that. And you know, it's a over 12,000 square foot building over multiple floors. So, good project, great project for the village. And, you know, it's great to see that happen.
This-
Parking associated with it? At all?
Yeah, so there's a parking lot that is not with the building that we've already signed a lease We have a long-term lease with the building. We've also signed a first right of refusal to purchase that and the building next to it.
Okay. I wanted to thank our council, Caracoli Law and Barclay Damon, both here in the room, just for, this is a small project for us, for the IDA, to make it worthwhile to the company. The benefits package, you know, only goes so far with a small project and the cost to implement such a deal. So they've cooperated with us to make that possible for this project, so just thank you.
Thank you.
Just from my perspective, what is your timeline? I mean, obviously, assuming that benefits are approved and, you know, everything goes according to plan, what does your schedule look like for getting started?
We're looking at a June 2026 finish date.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
so the grant was extended for 12 months. Should something be delayed, they have verbally agreed to extend it another 6, but we are trying to make that 12-month.
Okay.
June 2026.
Are you able to start later this year, or what's your, I mean, I'm thinking you're probably looking at a 12-month or at least a 9-month schedule.
Yeah, so we're waiting, I mean, financing is the key part, and one of the reasons here, so we're really, you know, waiting for that. Hopefully we can get that completed in August at some time. I mean, we're gonna immediately start, so we're hoping September 1st, and we're just going. We can get it done in under 12, but we need to get started before the weather hits really to.
And I would also say, working with the state, if you show significant progress on this, that's more justification for them if they need to extend it by 3 months or 6 months.
And they've already indicated.
Yes.
They would do
Yeah,
that.
they were upfront about that.
Yeah.
Everybody else, any? No? Okay. Good luck, guys.
Thank you very much.
You gotta put the official.
Did we do a vote? Yeah.
No, we
No,
don't.
we're just
made a motion.
We get a motion, for the initial resolution.
Oh, second.
Mel and Tricia, any other comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Opposed? Motion carried. Yeah, your brother already talked to me. Thank you guys.
Look, guys, looking forward to seeing it.
Thank you. So the next thing.
It kind of sounds like back, you know, I don't know.
I'll just, I'll look at the calendar and,
Yeah.
something, well, I got enough on my hand.
I figured you did.
The village, but.
Didn't make it today.
Oh.
Soon we would go to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll do it.
Yeah, that will jump to the next.
All right, well, thanks for being here.
All right.
So, appreciate it.
It's
Been wonderful to work with so far, so. So when it comes to closing, the manager from Berkeley.
Yeah.
See your.
Nothing else, you know, new benefits, nothing like that, they just, as part of these projects, with the new ownership, they're gonna have to do new financing, and because we're in that chain of command, we need to consent to them getting that financing.
See you guys, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, number 8. Only PV LLC consent to financing.
Yeah, I can explain this, you know, it's, at the last meeting, we approved, consent to ownership change. Probably, should have had this as well, but, there wasn't that request at the time, but we've been told by the project. Everything's still going, according on schedule. There's been no formal or any other requests for additional, benefits or anything. They're very understanding that, you know, some of the benefits that previous company had gotten, did not use, are just not, they're just not gonna be able to take. But they have said that, you know, as part of the, this project, they are going to be entering into new financing. And, because of the IDA's, participation in the project, we have to consent to that financing. So it's, you know, really us just consenting to them, entering the new, financing, and then us sort of, you know, being part of those documents as well. Don't believe there's anything else, associated with that.
Okay.
And we should have there's 2 separate projects, so, they are next to each other, but.
Yeah, and the financing change is significant, frankly, from what was originally approved to what they are seeking by way of outside financing that we're being asked to consent to. But again, the work of Amanda, Barclay Dave and her team, my office, we're reviewing documents. We've provided language to the company There's no recourse against the IGA for consenting. It's strictly being done as a result of our interest in the properties, these projects. But there's no fallback on us if there's a default, doesn't, the IGA is immune, so to speak, from any type of liability.
And since they've been built for the most part, there's very limited liability of what could happen at this point during construction.
Yeah, true, good point.
Okay. Can I get a motion on Valley DB LLC?
I'll make the motion.
Tim, second,
A second.
Tricia? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Same thing for only two BB LLC.
I'll make the motion.
No. Second. Pat? Any questions? All those in favor?
Who was the motion?
Opposed?
No.
Mel and Pat.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Number 10, Opal Gas and Energy LLC. Renfro Town of Holland.
Yeah, I can do this and actually Kevin could probably jump in as needed. So shortly after our last meeting, we had gotten a response back from DEC. So sometime after the new year started, this is the project we're working on with Remco on the acreage that we have an option agreement with them across the railroad track down at adjacent to the former ethanol plant. There was a little purple blob that popped up on the maps that was not there before, and we were like, "What is this?" This is, so Kevin, representing both us and the company, kind of reached out to DEC just to kind of say, "We've never seen something like this. What is this?" And they came back and said, "Well, there's a jurisdictional determination that there are wetlands on that site, and they're Class 2 wetlands, and because of that, there needs to be an entire wetland delineation and other things that need to be done." So we just found that out on May 29th. So we're coming today. What I'm really asking for is authorizing us to coordinate with the company. So if there's things that need to be done, we don't have to keep going back to the IDA and asking on a month-to-month basis, "Can we approve this? Can we approve this?" So what I would be asking for is authorized to coordinate related to environmental due diligence. We're not taking on any of the cost of that. We're not doing any of that. That's still on the company at this point related to their due diligence. But we're giving them authorization to be able to do work. And some of this might be a little overkill because with our previous option agreement, we had some language in there. But this specifically because we're going to have to do some sort of a wetland delineation on this site. I wanted to make you aware that this has popped up, and to get that approval. So over the next 2 months, I've got to sign 4 or 5 things. I can do that without having to wait 4 or 5 months.
And this is just technicalities because we own the land and they're having this done on our land.
That's right. I mean, we are still the landowner, so the responsibility to apply is on us, but pursuant to the agreement that we entered into with the company's on the hook for covering all expenses.
Okay.
So,
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you say it popped up, what map did they get that from? I thought there were no maps.
the DEC went through, as part of the whole wetland
Right.
identification process, and the way they explained it to us at a meeting that we had, what was that, earlier this month? The technology that they used identified certain areas that were characteristic of wetlands. And so they.
AI program figured out that there's
Probably.
pond on there.
So Mel, you asked which maps this is on. This is on the County Real Property Tax Service website. There's layers on there that are related to New York State DEC wetlands.
Right, but I thought they said those were defunct, throw them out, there are no maps.
They're still
We have
there.
to create new ones, what we were told, the maps are no good, there are no maps.
So what that did was to trigger a request, and that's what I ended up doing. I went online, I put in the request for a jurisdictional determination through the DEC. DEC then took a look at it, staff looked, and they issued this letter saying, hey,
Okay,
by the way, there is evidence of a Class 2 wetland on your property. You need to go out and do a little further due diligence and and determine whether it is.
Really
and then-
determine the actual location, if it exists, the actual location and map it.
and-
Okay, so you basically said the process by contacting.
They're putting it on,
the-
they're putting it on the developer.
Okay,
So as you said, they aren't making maps, they're identifying areas which they think there is something and then putting the cost and the onus on you as the
Right.
property owner.
They used to be able to use the map to get out of having to do it. Essentially what they
Right.
said now is that you're gonna have to prove that you
right,
are out of it.
right.
That's what we're doing now.
Okay, so I'm just curious, but
Yeah.
I understand now is that you actually did the application to go and
Yes.
say it.
Yes.
Okay, cause I'm just like, why would they all of a sudden out of nowhere?
Yeah,
Okay.
we never saw purple blobs before, these were new, like we saw yellow and we saw green, purple was a new color for us on those maps.
Okay, thank you.
So do we expect this to put a big damper on this project?
I think it's gonna probably slow things down a little bit because this is gonna be required as part of the town of Alny's, they're gonna need to have this kind of understanding and things like that. I mean, DEC is one of the parties when you do this stuff that, so. We just have to have our ducks in a row.
I would say that a lot of the schedule that the company laid out built in some of this time delay. So if you recall, I mean, they're not even projecting that this would be developable until I think 2028.
Yeah, it's,
So
it was 3 years from,
But it's-
we approved it in January 25.
something like this, if it gets really unduly delayed, can set everything back, but that's why we're moving, on it now.
The other thing that's important to understand is that the IDA had an option on a 50-acre portion of that project, so it's not. If something is found and they've determined there is room on that site to be able to move things around. So I think that, not really concerned about that, it's just, this is something new to us that we found and there'll be a couple other items on this agenda that we have some consistency in terms of new wetland stuff, grading issues, so. But it is what it is.
Yeah. So we're looking for a motion to authorize Kevin and Austin.
Myself and Kevin Caracoli to kind of work through this, and work with the company to get this wetland delineation done.
And sign applications, other documents,
Right.
but not incur any costs, so that perhaps.
Okay.
Yep.
So can I get a motion to that? Motion. Pat, second,
A second.
Tricia. Any discussion of the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Seeing White Crops, Harris Road property update.
I can do this one as well. So, since we had such a sort of a wet spring, CNY Cropper came back to us and said that they did not have a chance to plant, within the typical time that they would have to plant to make sure that they can ensure getting that crop, harvested in time. This was also, we had communicated with them.
Thank you.
We had also communicated with them, earlier this year that this was the last year where we'd be able to do this based on our timeline related to the industrial park expansion. So the company let us know earlier this month that, since that property, they were able to get some of their other properties that were a little bit higher and drier, but this one was not one they were able to get to within that time. And so they wanted to thank us for allowing them to plant that in the past, but, that they were electing to not do that this year. So, which is good for us. It means that we don't now have to potentially, make them whole for any damaged crops or anything like that. So, and the way that this was written, we don't hold them to pay us if they aren't using it. So for us, it's just good that we have, people going out there and doing work on that site. And now we don't have to worry that, oh, well, they damaged 2.5 acres of crops. We need to make them whole for it. It's best for both the parties at this point. So, but they didn't let us know that,
Is not planning on it, give us any issues as far as increasing the size of the wetlands or anything?
not in the short term. I mean, if this was something that was like 5-10 years, yeah, but if it's something that in 1 year, it's not gonna be an issue. We also have we already have our wetlands mapped and delineated related to that, and that's good for 5 years, so we don't have to,
Okay.
be concerned about.
And I find it interesting that they say it's because it's been a wet spring. They have not planted any place in Schuylkill.
Mhm.
I think they made so much money selling land that
Possible.
they didn't need to, but I mean,
Possible.
I keep looking all of the places that they normally work. Nope, nope, and I'm talking
Yeah.
high, low, medium, all different soils.
Yeah.
They ain't done nothing.
Oh.
But it's been interesting.
They said it has impacted about 2/3 of the property that they normally farm. So it's not just us, it's other things as
Oh,
well.
yeah,
but-
it's, but there's other,
Yeah.
just curious.
So I'm guessing some of those other properties are ones that you mentioned in Schuylkill.
Oh, yeah, they're in the right, as they say,
Yeah.
right around that normally you go, oh, yeah, no, wow, they're
Yeah.
not doing this.
Now,
They're-
some of the, I know that some of the property that's been sold to the Wetland Trust is property that they owned previously, so. But I believe that they had the rights to, until that property is needed for that, to still farm it, and if they haven't, then it just tells me it has been pretty wet. Been pretty wet spring.
It is, there's no doubt about it, it has been wet and we are late in getting stuff in, but we're still getting, people are still being able to get stuff in.
Yeah.
It's just that there's a lot of acres that
Mhm.
nothing's happened, but
Yeah.
that's okay. Curious.
Okay, so that's just an update.
Yeah, nothing, we don't, we don't have to take any action on it, just wanted to give you guys the update on that, so it's, when they have fully utilized it, we've gotten about $12,000 for it, and we won't be getting that this year, but we also won't have any headache of having to
Pay them $20,000.
pay them $20,000 for a break. Yeah, I mean, it's, we
Okay,
so where we might have before said, well, we won't start putting shovels in the ground until November to make sure it's okay, maybe we can move it up to October or something, so it provides us some flexibility.
all right, moving along. Number 12, housing study report.
Sure, so everybody should have in front of them, the report of, can I actually see that? Oh, yeah, I think I have one in front of me here. So as you remember, last year, the IDA authorized, contracting with MRB Group to develop a housing needs assessment and development strategy. We received that, final report earlier this month. Actually, the company came, or MRB Group came and did a presentation, I think on June 5th, here at our facility. There's been a lot of interesting findings in this report. I mean, about what the level of housing stock, the quality of housing stock, sort of what our needs are going to be over the next several years. And a lot of this is, regardless of Micron or not, like we are in a place where we have a significant housing deficit, which leads to a lot of the issues we have right now, where housing prices on both the apartment side and on single family owner occupied is one of the fastest and increasing in the country, to the point where what people are making is not keeping up with the cost of housing. And one of the big challenges that we see is that the gap that is growing can't be met by the market, so there are some findings in this report that I think are going to be coming back to that will be coming back to the IDA in the very near future, looking to say, what can we do as an agency to help? We can't solve the entire issue on our own, obviously, but there are some things we potentially could do to get involved in, housing projects that we currently don't, that we see other IDAs around the state doing. There's also findings in here, related to things that could be better done at the town level in terms of, improving things on zoning and improving things related to, their own codes, local laws and codes. So, I'm not going to go through this entire thing today, but I wanted to provide this to you guys, really kind of take a look through the executive summary on this. I think that, myself, Nate from our office, I think even Tim was very involved in this, helping literally on a weekly basis, being involved in meetings with the MRB Group. We're going to be going and doing a road show to our municipalities over the summer and in the fall about the findings of this, and to really get the community buy-in, because what we don't want to see happen is, hey, we create a great report, great plan, and then it sits on the shelf because the people who need to actually do things don't want to do things. And I think I will say that a lot of times with a lot of their communities, I think we're going to get support on this to be able to make changes. Almost every community was interviewed and part of this process. We did several different surveys. We did a community survey. We did survey of landlords. We did a survey of Tim, what other survey did we do? The school district, businesses. We had communications directly with a majority or just about a majority of the school districts in Oswego County. So really, we wanted to look at this in a comprehensive way of how does this impact, everything from the availability of housing, how does it impact our schools, how does it impact our businesses, and as I said before, the issue is significant now. Throw Micron and other sort of growth into that, and you're throwing gasoline on a fire. And we're going to see, what we don't want to see happen if we don't do anything. We just kind of sit back and let things happen. Is we don't want to see is people who've lived here get pushed out because they can't afford to live here anymore. And you might not see it in a year or two or three, but over 10 years, 20, 30 years, you'll see significant change if nothing's done. So, and this is sort of a similar approach and a similar finding that's happened at the regional level through the Central New York's, is that there's a need for all types of housing. But what we've identified particularly here is there's a significant need for middle market housing. It's that people who are making between, it could be 80% of AMI up to 120%. So people that are making between, say, $55,000 and $80,000. It's getting to the point where they cannot afford housing. When a new house, $350,000, and you throw taxes on top of that, and insurance on top of that, they might get approved by the bank for $250,000. You got a gap. Like, how do you figure this out? So, and the same thing on the rental side. When rents go from, we saw rents that were average rents of $900 to $1,100 to $1,300, and within a very short amount of time, when your average rents start to get to $1,400, $1,500, people can't afford that, and so it's creating real issues. So I think there's going to be ways that the IDA can look to be involved in a strategic way to help encourage new housing, primarily multifamily apartment type of housing, potentially townhouses, patio homes, that kind of stuff, senior housing in particular, because if we can help to just create new housing, just getting supply into the market will help pricing. But right now we're in a place where I think Kevin said earlier he was looking for a house, and you've never had a deal where you're having to put in offers well above asking just to even get in the door.
Escalator clauses, yeah, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and it's not a pretty market out there right now. So anyway.
Not for buyers.
Yeah, well, if you're selling, but if you're a seller and then you become a buyer right afterwards, you're right back where you started. So maybe if you're somebody who owns multiple properties, you're in a good spot. But if you're like, hey, great, I just made $100,000 more than whatever, you're gonna go right around and spend that again when you go looking or more. So it's not great.
If I can find one.
But yeah, I mean, I do want to say that, some of the priority recommendations that came out of this, one of the things that had been mentioned, and this, we'll see more on this, is the IDA, it was recommended the IDA amend its uniform tax exempt policy to incentivize middle market and senior housing. I think that's something we'll be looking at in the near future. This is something we'll be kind of partnering with the county to work with towns, villages, and cities to ensure that comprehensive plans are up to date and reflective of community priorities and desired development. Some of our communities don't have any comprehensive plans. Some of them haven't been updated since the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So, I mean, it's, some of them are out of date. Some of them have done a good job, I will say that. But there's some that, they need to be brought into the 21st century. We also, working with municipalities, they mentioned the county should work to identify key sites for housing development. Some of that has been done. But also key sites that align with the community's vision. So it's not just identifying a site that would be good for housing, it's making sure that the community is on board with that as well. Also working to get through any barriers related to environmental testing, remediation, so for brownfields, that kind of stuff. So some of our sites that might make the most sense are sites that are going to require, that have some challenges and need to be cleaned up. So sites like the Nestle site in Fulton, and some other ones that would make sense, but there's barriers there to having that project happen. One of the other things that was mentioned is that related to Micron in particular is that before we see production workers here, we're going to see the construction workers here. Where are those people going to live? Is this, what is their plan? Does Oswego County have a plan for that? Is it just going to happen? Is there enough out there to support that? So that could be including not just housing, but hotel development and other things like that, that make sense and are good long-term sustainable developments. And so also looking, so there's gonna be opportunities in the southern part of the county related to that. Also looking to rehabilitate structures, constructing new housing that increases that middle market housing stock. And the last thing that they kind of said is sort of a priority recommendation was encouraging municipalities to keep property assessments up to date. I think everyone kind of saw what happened last year in the city of Oswego with the reassessment and, just sort of the frustrations it created, and it's a good lesson for other smaller communities that maybe haven't done a full reval in 20, 30 years, get on those things because it could, while it may not in the end create a massive change, it could create a huge perception of change and create, a lot of animosity between residents and stuff like that. So just things to kind of get in front of. But I mean, there is a whole lot of stuff in here, and we could take an entire meeting to go over that, so I won't do that today. But we will be looking to, in the very near future, implementing the things that are directly related to us, and then working with our partners at the county and our towns to help them to grow in the areas that they need to.
It's our game plan for that, for trying to, who we putting that, who's definitely putting that on, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If we don't have even a 3-person group that's responsible for moving this forward, it's all on one person. It's going to be difficult to do, and it's we just did it. We spent some money on doing it. I would, for one, like to see some results from it.
I mean, I think on ours we can absolutely control our side of it. I think that we've been working well with Tim's office. The county's also doing comprehensive planning right now, so there's a lot of momentum, and there's a lot of parallel things that are happening at the same time. The biggest issue, and it's going to be our responsibility. We've had conversations with communities, and I think for the most part people haven't been against it. It's just when you actually start saying a town says, okay, we're going to change a local law, that's when the public comes out, and that's when that's where we've seen something that seems like it's innocent and not a big deal becomes a big deal because it's change. So I think that there's going to be an effort related to people in this room going out to communities and talking to them about doing this, and I think it's going to be probably going to be more successful in some communities than others. I just say it up front. There's going to be some communities that are going to be okay, and some that I just already know they're going to be a challenge. But we can't.
We can only do what we can do.
We can only do what we can do. New York State is a home rule state, and I know Tim said that before. If a village doesn't want to do something, we can't force it. We can lead them to water, but we can't make them drink. And but I think providing them the tools and sort of seeing the incentives that are out there. One of the things tomorrow that we're going to talk about, Dan Kolinsky is going to come. We have a CFA workshop from 3 to 5, but from 2 to 3, we've actually set up a special session just for municipalities to come and hear from Dan about pro-housing community, about hearing about the different programs specific to municipalities. And, so there's some carrots out there to do things like this and to adopt these things. But ultimately that's, we can lead them to water, but we can't make it drink. But we'll be going out and we'll be doing a lot of leading to water this summer and this fall.
So my sense is for us, the first thing we need to do is address the things that we can address internally, right? Or
It takes some time.
Things like that. So, we gotta have a plan for that for ourselves. So.
And we have other people that were on the steering committee that have good connections into some of these communities. So, like for example, Heidi Tompkins with Tug Hill Commission. She has close relationships with pretty much every community that's on the east side of 81. And she, through the Salmon River Council of Governments or the North Shore Council of Governments, we can get in, we can talk to them and say, to me, it's almost better to talk to them as a group than do it individually, because you kind of get that little bit of a peer pressure there of, well, if they're going to do it, like we can't be left behind. So I think that, kind of having some of these conversations in groups is going to be better. And they may also, ask questions or things that they wouldn't have done, if you did, or at least have access to that information. So yeah, I agree with you though. I think we can control what we can control, and we can do what we can do to try to help them on it. Ultimately, if there's certain things that are not implemented, it's gonna be unfortunate, but that is what it is. Pam, anything you wanted to add on that?
I think, no, you did a great job. I think, again, I want to thank the folks at MRB. I think they did an excellent job. They were very attentive throughout the process.
Yeah.
Your staff, obviously, Nate specifically, put a ton of time into this, but I think it's a very well done document, cover to cover. I think you're right, making sure that the communities that we work with are knowledgeable about what it is that we're talking about. That's crucial. We found with the countywide comprehensive plan update, the same, similar to the IDA, the county doesn't have the ability, that's not our property either, right? It's those towns and villages. So it's been building that relationship, making sure there's a bit of a trust maybe that hasn't been there in the past. And it allows for some conversations, not just to be said, but to be received as well. I think we're moving in a good direction.
Well, and I will say that, and I'm not just saying this because it's Tim and I, but Tim and I over the last couple of years have gone into communities and have sort of, there's a respect level between the communities and us that, not saying it wasn't there, but that there just wasn't that communication happening on that basis. So I think that there's some sort of trust there that communities don't think we're leading them astray. You know, but like I said, I mean, if they get to a point like we like what you're saying, but we can't cross that line, then we'll just have to deal with that.
Yeah. There, you know, there's an opportunity with respect to the last point where communities need to keep up their property assessment. It's an opportunity to educate through example. And, you know, Austin mentioned it, the best example most recently is the city of Oswego. And for as much pain that was inflicted through that process, the data has held up over the last couple of years to the point where the city of Oswego is the only community, with the exception of, I think, West Monroe, who's maintained a 100% equalization rate in the county, whereas every other community is either held at substantially below 100%, and in some cases have continued to decrease into the 60s and 50%. So if you think about it, 50% of the value of your community is below an equalized level. That has to improve collectively for the region to benefit from a report like this. And so, you know, one other example in terms of housing, notwithstanding the 100% equalization, all the values in Oswego City going up, we've got a developer that's come to town who's proposing 10 single-family units on 4th Avenue and spending millions of dollars to do it in, you know, arguably the highest assessed community in the county. So it can be done, and it's just educating through example, and that's going to be a task for probably everyone around this table and others.
And so, hey, I mean, what I would say, Gary, and if there's any ways you can help us when we get to the town, I mean, understanding kind of what we've gone through, and you know, I don't think that Volney is going to be one of our problem children on that. I don't think that that's going to happen, but there's probably going to be a few. But just, you know, help us through that process there, and then we can kind of say, hey, you know, this is how the process works. The other thing I want
Approval is like the lowest, or almost second, the lowest, we got 50%. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons is it's the cost.
Yeah.
That's what the town says. It would cost so much for a reassessment. They says we can't afford to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those that the further you get away from when you did it,
Yeah.
the more you can't afford to do it. So it's one of those that you can't do it now. Imagine what it's going to be if you do it in 10 years, what that's going to look like. But the other thing I wanted to say, and I talked to Mel and I talked to Tim about this, is that now that we have this and the county doing the comprehensive plan, this could be brought in and made part of the county's comprehensive plan. So while we can't guarantee it's going to be part of every town's what they do, we can say that this will become part of the county's comprehensive plan.
I was gonna say, we should take pieces of this and put it in our strategic planning for OC, right? I mean, working within some of that too. I think there's a lot of overlap and synergy of things that are being done, because it was my understanding with the report, we were supposed to get kind of like a work plan, right? So would this be some of the things that they've laid out as priorities and strategies? There's still more to come.
And if you
right?
look through, there's some things that have been identified as an operation Oswego County item or in collaboration with other groups. So they've kind of gone through, if you look through the action matrix and some of those in detail, it kind of talks about the item, what they've identified as a cost, what they've identified as a timeline, and who are the parties who need to do it. You know, so we can kind of on it item by item, like I said, we might say, hey, this needs this person. Well, that person isn't willing to be on a part of it. We'll have to work that out, figure that out. But I think that we do have sort of a roadmap on some of these. The other thing that I didn't provide as part of this, because there's still a little bit of tweaking going on, is that they've also developed some marketing documents for us about sites and about the types of housing, so that we can use that and go out to developers outside and say, hey, this is something that, you know, we've identified a need for X, Y, Z senior housing, and then here's a good community to do it, and you know, and really go out and use that as a tool to bring developers. Either, I mean, you work from within, and I know we have some developers that we've talked to already that are interested, but there's some projects that, you know, probably bring people from the outside to do, because that's their specialty and it's a project that they're comfortable doing. But yeah, so that's the other part of it, and that will be provided as soon as that is sort of ready. But yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting probably 8 months or so, 9 months, and we're kind of at that finish line now. But at least to the report, now the hard work comes to the implementation.
Is there a digital version of this link?
There is, yeah. It's actually, I believe it is out as of now out on the IDA, or yeah, IDA's website.
There's
But
a QR code to link.
Yep. So that does exist, and then that'll also happen for the marketing document as well.
We think that it makes sense for this to be incorporated into the county's comprehensive plan. Is that something you're gonna work on?
Yeah, we've actually already provided it to EDR, which is our consultant for the project. And so they have it, they have a copy of it, my staff have a copy as well, so.
It's done. We don't need to do the same thing over again.
Yeah, well, we don't want to have conflicting reports. But I think that they also, I mean, that was one of the things we wanted to do with this, is we wanted to make sure we have a report that was local to Oswego County. There's other efforts going on around the state and other places that are like a regional one that kind of looks at the region as a one place. You know, well, Oswego County is different than Onondaga County, it's different than Portland County and Madison County. So we really needed a document that was localized to us and our issues.
Great. Any other questions, comments?
Nice job.
Yeah, it's great to
Cool.
see.
I know Nate isn't here, but I really do want to thank Nate. He participated in every weekly meeting on that. I made it to a few of the weekly meetings, but you know, I was in the other ones. But Nate and Tim really were the ones who kind of worked together on this thing.
Go and Tim.
Nice job, Tim.
I'll tell you, MRB did an excellent job. I want to really highlight that. They were excellent.
Especially with some of the additional requests we asked for.
Yep.
Yeah, they were.
Without additional cost.
Oh.
Yeah, they said it'll make it take 2 weeks longer. We said it's worth it. We need to have that information in there. Not having done this before, we didn't, you know, some of the things we didn't know to ask for until until we knew it was like, oh yeah, we do want that survey. We didn't think about that. So anyway,
Right. Columbia Mills.
all right. Well, it's Columbia Mills and Lake Ontario Industrial Park. So this we've had a recent progress report from Barton LaJudas related to both projects. Some of the information they were not able to get until the snow melted and some of the water sort of drained away. One of the things, and this is consistent with both sites, Lake Ontario a little bit more, because we just didn't know some of those issues. There are significant wetlands under new regulation that were never mapped, that we didn't know existed. We knew on some of it on the Columbia Mills site because there was a body of water that went through there, but sites that are far away from that, and then in particular on the Lake Ontario Industrial Park, where there's no standing water, there's no streams or anything that run through it. They've identified multiple areas where they've identified it is preliminary.
Help.
That's what I said too. But wetland vegetation means it's a wetland. So if there's wetland vegetation, that's a wetland. So what they've done, they've gotten about halfway through. They said we need to stop doing some of these master planning things because our master planning things are going to be really dictated based on what the wetlands are, unless you want to go through and do very, very, very expensive wetland mitigation. I said, well, let's not do that yet. So what they have recommended is that, because we did not have this in our scope, because one, we didn't think we needed it, is that we need to go through and do fully delineated wetlands, similar to what's being that is going to be asked on the for the Opal gas and energy. But this would be on us because it's obviously our project. What they have recommended is we take the balance of the funding that has been allocated but hasn't been spent and use that to do delineated wetlands. They said that there could be some additional things above and beyond that, but we need to do the delineated wetlands first to determine what the next steps are. So I wanted to bring it to your attention. We just got this information last week. I just got yesterday these new scopes, but at a minimum, what they've said is that we would take the dollars that have been allocated already, and we would reprioritize that at this point to do fully delineated wetlands, because you can't do detailed design and master planning if you don't know where you need to put stuff. And so there could be more than 50% of that Lake Ontario Industrial Park site, which is wetland. And if that is the case, then you draw 100 foot around that, which is what you have to do under the new wetland requirements. Before you could build up to it, now you can't.
use all that
So-
thing?
So we need to find out some of these things. So to me right now, and I'm not saying it's that bad, but from what they've said is that, well, originally you thought that maybe this could be repurposed or reused for residential. They said, if this is as much as we think, then that's probably not gonna be a good value proposition to do. Now, you can't do it, it's not gonna be a good value proposition. You can only develop 10 acres out of 50. You know, if that's like that. So anyway, I want to bring it to your attention, and I want to request authorization. I don't have it stated here. We can talk further about it in exec if you want to, but if we could get authorization, at least at this point, that we repurpose the remaining dollars associated with that to do wetland delineation. I have prices for everything, and
Can I ask if they're gonna be on that?
Prices and stuff, let's do that in executive.
yeah, that's what I wanted to do, but I just wanted to give you this information. It's probably, this is, we can talk about this in public, but talking about contractual related things we should do from that. But anyway, so that is sort of where we're at. They've done a lot of work. Some of that work they were not able to do. And the other thing I'm thinking, and this is the optimist in me coming out, is that they did find standing water on several of those places. Well, if you also do a wetland delineation in April, or if you're doing wetland work in April, sites that are wet are probably not going to be wet when you're back in June, July, and that. So if you do a wetland delineation in your driest months, July, maybe we'll see some better results. But as of right now, it doesn't look good. So
Okay. There's no action required at this point on that, right?
maybe if you want to take an action coming out of executive.
Do it on it after exec. Okay.
Yep.
So the next three items look like they need to be in executive session. Kevin, could you tell us why?
Yep, be to discuss the financial circumstances of a particular individual or corporation, and also matters involving pending or threatened litigation.
I get a motion to move into executive session.
Second.
Very interesting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.